Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth and final workshop of storytelling through spoken word. In this session, we will look at important elements of a stage performance which help you bring your story to life and give a captivating performance. Ask the group to share some impactful performances which they've experienced. Watch the following clip and discuss the impact.
Say something. Scream. Scratch his eyes out. Just kick him. Anything. Just Jesus, please. I tried. I really did. I think maybe I wasn't strong enough. Or loud enough. Or maybe I just didn't say no enough. I can't hear much. I just, the confidence of his hands over my jeans. Like he's familiar with this. I'm looking at this door. And suddenly, the door is a curtain. My mother and my sister, they're on the other side. I can see them through the holes. But on the other side, the curtain is a door. And they can't see me. And I just want to set both rooms on fire. It's like my breath is wet inside my lungs and I want to reach in with my fingers and just pull it up. I've done it before, you know? Just almost set myself on fire just to set something that I love free. When Laurentia Isaacs had knocked my biology book into a campfire on a school trip, I didn't even think. I almost threw myself in there just to get it out. And then every day after that, walk through those school halls with that book of molten plastic and smell of smoke, just a reminder. Now her mother, she knew that her daughter was a bully, so she offered to buy me another one, but I said no. Because I wanted to hold on to my anger. And even long after her detention and my blisters had gone away, still that book told a story. It took my sister like almost 6 months to convince me to stop being petty and to at least put on a new cover. Jesus wants us to forgive 70 times 7 times. 490 times. You see, but it was more than just a book. It was my way out of there, you know? When they found out that I got into UCT with a scholarship, things had just gotten worse. And that book was my protest against their abuse. And my mother hated that book. You know, she has this thing where she just cleans all day. She will make a mess, cleaning all day but never finishing. And then we left to put back everything that's been thrown around, but somehow she hated that book. She'd ask me if I liked embarrassing her in public. Did I want the neighbors to know that Antoinette Jacobs could not afford new things for her girls? I didn't know how to tell her that it wasn't about her, but me for once. That I had the power. I'd snatched it from the fire. People are always trying to take power away from girls like me. But that book, the smoke just wouldn't go away. And so as long as Laurentia and I remembered, even in the rain, the smell won't go away.
There are 4 basic elements of stage performance which storytellers should know, which will help bring their stories and poems to life in an unforgettable way. Those elements are voice, body, movement, and space. Let us take a look at each one in more detail. Tools of trade. Think about a doctor who needs a scalpel to be able to cut someone open. Think about what an electrician needs, what a plumber needs, what their tools of trade, the tools of their trade are that make it possible to do their work. And as performers, as storytellers, we need to be able to understand the tools that we have at our disposal, to know how to make the most of them, to know how to keep them sharp so that they can do the job correctly. So as we look at body, space, voice, and movement, understand them for what they are. These are tools that you have in your toolbox that make your work as a storyteller more interesting and more effective in the relationship between you and the audience. All right, let's look at the body. Character is conveyed through posture, gesture, and facial expression. In this way, the audience can instantly identify with a character type or understand a situation without a word being spoken. The fortunate thing, perhaps, is that as a performer, you always have this tool with you. You always have your body with you. So in storytelling, think about what you're conveying, how you are able to share meaning in non-verbal ways. And this is where your body is most important. I want to unpack this further by looking at some of the aspects of this tool which are available to you, especially when thinking about space. Sometimes it's easy to just stand up and start talking, but really being aware of what your body is doing and what you're communicating is incredibly effective. And that's what will set you apart as a storyteller. So here are some definitions that you should definitely note and make sure that you keep them in mind. Firstly, we have posture. That's your stance or the way of standing. And as the previous slide said, if you're trying to convey a specific character, those things will change. You want it to be different from who you are. Then there's gesture, which is the movement of any part of the body to express idea, feeling, or mood. Then, body awareness. This is the ability to select the appropriate use of your body on stage, choosing to use your whole body or isolated parts of the body expressively. And this helps to draw the focus of the audience to that specific part. So your choices as a performer, your choices as a storyteller need to be intentional. Facial expression. This is using the face to show mood, emotion, feeling, and responses. I think what's interesting about facial expression is that it's really great for subtext. And subtext is what is under the text. These are the things that are not said, but that are often motivations for what the story that's being told. So think about how your mouth can say one thing, but your face can say something completely different, and how this creates and builds tension for the audience. Eye contact. This means establishing eye contact with another actor or another performer on the stage, or eye contact with the audience. Think also of what not establishing eye contact means. What does that possibly say when you try and avoid someone's eyes? The next tool in our toolbox is space. Space being the positioning of objects and bodies on the stage, and the relationships between them are a vital means of making meaning. Thinking about grouping, levels, pathways, and personal space are all important aspects of space. I'll break down what those grouping, levels, pathways, personal space, etc. are. But it's important to think about the relationship of your body as the storyteller to the space in which you're telling the story, and not simply to ignore it or see it as background, but think about how you are relating to the space, think about how you're moving in the space, and think about how that happens in relation to the audience as well. So let's look at some further terminology that relates to space. Firstly, we have levels. Levels being low, medium, high. These are the levels at which you're able to play. You can perform at low level, medium, high, and that means the physical positioning of the body in the space. In the video that you're going to watch, you'll see an example of levels. Personal space. This means your own space as the performer, the bubble immediately around your body, and how you use the space. Remember that each of these mean something. They communicate something to the audience about the story that you're sharing. General space. all other space in the room and how you use the space. So there's the personal space, your bubble, but beyond that bubble is the general space. Architecture, the physical structures of the space you're in and within the space, and how you use and interact with these structures. So think about the structures. That could be the ceiling, the walls, pillars, and anything else that relates to architecture, the floor. Proximity, the amount of distance or space between actors, the amount of space between actors and the audience. So if you're not alone on stage, it's important to think about proximity. If you're not aware, you may soon bump into each other or have really unnatural dialogue or conversation or telling the story if you're not thinking about the distance between the bodies in the space. So think about proximity. Think also about that in relation to you as the actor or in relation to you as a performer and the audience. How close or far you are from the audience is important in storytelling. Tool number 3 in our toolbox is very important and yet often underutilized, and that is the voice. How an actor, performer, storyteller speaks their lines instantly identify personality and emotion. Volume, pitch, pausing, intonation, pace, and accent can all influence the audience in the understanding of a character and the tension of a scene. Of course, here we're speaking specifically in relation to a play, but these are elements that are important for us as storytellers as well. Think about the characters that may be in your story. If you want to voice the different characters, do they have different accents? Do they have different ways of speaking? All of these need to come into play, and we can't take them for granted. We need to pay close attention, as that adds and aids the meaning and adds weight to our story. So here's a breakdown of the elements of voice, which you have at your disposal. Pitch, the highness or the lowness of a sound. Pace, the rate or the speed at which words are spoken. Pause, where the sound stops, how often, and for how long. Projection, projection enables the audience to hear the voice. As we say in performance, it's how you're able to throw your voice across the room. Volume, how loudly or softly the words are spoken. So there's a little bit of a differentiation here between projection and volume. Volume having to do with being soft or loud, and projection to do with being heard. Articulation, the clarity of voice. In workshop 3, we played around with some articulation exercises. If you remember, you need New York. That articulation ensures that we're able to hear every word clearly. Tone, the feeling and emotion in the voice. Again, we've addressed a little bit of this. Inflection, the rise and fall of a voice. So where is some of the emphasis in the voice? Accent, which is often particular to a country, society, or culture. Breathing, to allow a controlled use of voice to convey a feeling, for example, a sigh versus a gasp. So breathing is another component of voice and performance that's often not really thought about. We don't really put as much attention to it as we should, but breathing is very important. Repetition, repeating a sound or words for emphasis. And finally, emphasis, choosing to stress particular words to convey meaning. So something similar there in inflection and emphasis. Inflection also allows us to stress certain syllables or parts of a word. So all of these, again, come together and we're able to play around with each of these elements in order to tell the story. Think about when we draw the audience in by speaking really softly versus speaking really loudly, and what that says and how that gives meaning to what we're sharing. The final tool is the how of using our bodies within the space, and that tool is movement. Using timing, direction, and energy to build a sustained sequence of movement can enhance understanding of character and the meaning of a scene. And this is another element of performance, of stage, that is really useful for a storyteller. So let's look at some of those elements of movement which are available to you. The first is timing, which is the fast or slow tempo when you move, or the duration, which means the length of a movement. So the pace itself, fast or slow movement, when you move, and how long that movement is. Direction, which is simply where you're going, forwards, backwards, moving diagonally, or sideways. The energy. Energy is how you move, the amount of force, the mood expressed through movement. And energy plays an incredibly important role for storytellers because this is the energy in which you're going to instigate within the audience itself. If your energy is low and without intention, it will help you answer the question of, I'm losing my audience. This may be an answer. Energy may be the answer to that question of, I'm losing my audience. What do I do? Increase your energy, especially if it relates to how you're telling the story. Ensemble. When you're moving as a group, proximity to other actors, responding to other actors' movement. So as an individual storyteller, this might not relate to you, but if there's an opportunity, for example, even in the group that is in this workshop, ensemble means, again, that heightened awareness of the group, but how the group moves together and how the group relates, how the different performers relate within that space. Pathways, which is the pattern of movement you create in the space. For example, curved, straight, or zigzagging pathways. So these are the ways in which you move within the stage. This is a little bit different to direction. Direction is where you're going, whereas pathways is really how you get there. And finally, repetition, which means repeating a movement or recycling a movement for emphasis. This is a beautiful way to punctuate storytelling. Think about some of the important movements that may come up that match the text, that the repetition helps the audience to punctuate, or rather helps you as the performer to punctuate the story for the audience. And they're able to make certain connections between the movement and the story. Now, as a group, take some time to analyze the following clip by focusing on how the 4 elements of performance have been used.
Formation. There's always an older woman somewhere trying to teach herself silence because she was told that no one would believe her. So she's not sure anymore. Not sure if it actually happened. Wonders if she made it up in her mind somehow. Doesn't know how to tell away her bruises or the trauma of her memory. There is a younger woman, somewhere, learning to inherit that silence. Because she has seen how abused women are treated. She knows she will be interrogated more than her perpetrator. Will be made to feel like she was the accomplice, that she asked for it somehow, that her body is a bait, that her body is a trigger, that her body is a sin, that her body caused the sin, that she asked for it somehow, that her body is a bait, that her body is a trigger, that her body is a sin, that her body caused the sin, that she asked for it somehow, that her body is a bait, that her body is a trigger, that her body is a sin, that her body caused the sin, that she asked for it somehow, that her body is a bait, that her body is a trigger, that her body is a sin, that her body caused the sin, that she asked for it somehow, that her body is a bait, that her body is a trigger, that her body is a sin, that her body caused the sin, that she asked for it somehow, that her body is a bait, that her body is a trigger, that her body is a sin, that her body caused the sin, that she asked for it somehow, that her body is a bait, that her body is a trigger, that her body is a sin, that her body caused the sin. There is always an attempt to explain away a man's deeds, to suggest he was possessed, to suggest it was a demon's doing, to suggest he's a decent man at heart. Forget about a man's apology or his remorse unless it is advised by his lawyer, and even then, notice how much of him it takes to spit it out of his mouth. You'd swear he's been separated from something dear to him, something he cannot do without. Notice how often women are told to learn how to dress better, but never anything to the man on how to behave better.
Fathers wait for their sons to come home at night, sitting by the window waiting for someone to close the curtains. Do they call them to account? Ask the neighbors, the friends, the police? The sun setting on their absence and fear rising in its stead. They speak grace. Say grace, be grace. Who's sitting on the couch? Waiting. Keeping watch all night, hurting. Do fathers ask, do you know what happens to boys like you? Do you know what people say about boys who stay out all night? Does anyone even know that they've left?
Sorry that nobody taught you that people don't belong to people. That a woman's body is not yours to own, even if she lets you the privilege of loving her. If she says yes to your friendship, it is not a pellet for you to quench your thirst with her inside. She is not a well. We are not wells that you should demand to drink from us. The hunger for your soul is not for a woman to feed. The cuts of your ego are not for a woman to fix. We are not hospital. We are not hospital. We are not God. We are not therapy for low self-esteem. We are not kitchen cooking pan on fire because you feel hot. We are not silver plate ecstasy for your demons to find a home in. We are not the Savior.
We are not the Savior.
And you are still a boy. But we are not supplements to make a man out of you.
The books are burning.
We are books burning.
A teenager at a taxi rank. A lesbian in brown. A school child on a metro train. A housewife in Houghton. An unopened parcel at a post office. Our lives are a library of creased leaves. Spines straining into bookshelves under the trauma of lovers who call the blood between their teeth ink. And we are taught how to teach you how not to mark yourself by bending the corners or scribbling in the margins or bending us to breaking. We are lost chapter tired. Too weary to teach you how not to kill us, not to love us in violent braille. If indeed men are made on mountains, then make mountains. In every tweet, on every street, every night out with the boys, or boys will be boys, or indoors amadoda. Make the mountains if you dare. And then change the syllabus of manhood. Circumcise thought, prune your tongue, and learn how to whisper among the books. All the books. You too are born from between the mouths of these covers, so to burn libraries is to set yourselves on fire. You set yourselves on fire.
Invite the group participants to work on an extract of their poem to explore each of these elements. This method can also be used to workshop existing work in order to give new meaning to old texts. Let the group give feedback on ways to strengthen delivery and to share their experiences as an audience in the session. That brings us to the end of our storytelling through spoken word poetry session. I hope that this series has provoked exciting ideas and given storytellers tools which they can use now and in the future. Keep writing and tell your story to the world. We are excited to hear it.